Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be, and of course, however you may be listening. The reason for this video was initially going to be to detail whether I thought, from my own opinion, Fran McCaffery should stay or not, whether Iowa should fire him or not, and overall what I did think they were going to do. All that is out the window. The Fran McCaffery era, as alluded and broke this morning, Pacific time, I'd say like around 10 or 11, is over. The Fran McCaffery era is officially over at Iowa. I got to tell you guys, I am still going to detail what I thought, okay? I honestly, by the way, guys, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment. Y'all know the drill. Let me know what you guys think about this. Are you guys surprised by this? Were you guys expecting this? In a perfect world, my answer was going to be for myself that Fran McCaffery needed to go. For me, like if all things being equal, money wasn't an issue, buyouts weren't an issue, that I was going to say he needed to go. Wanted, I won't leave a breadcrumb. No, that was going to be my answer. I had to get my notebook here. But, and you guys were probably going to get annoyed with me caveating this in the original video I was going to make, and I told you guys I was going to make. My prediction was going to be that he was going to stay. Now, there's caveat to the caveat. I have said, going back to all my videos, when the Fran speculation started to swirl and the rumors started to come down, I said the one X factor in all of this is Beth Gates. And the fact is that new ADs usually want to clean house unless you're doing like really, really well as a previous regime coach, and they want to get their people in there, as many as they can, so that they can solidify their role as AD, especially in the situation that Beth Gates, and oftentimes this is what happens, was inserted into the athletic director role. Okay. Gary Barta was forced out. And a lot of Iowa fans disagree with this. I actually thought that Gary Barta, towards the end, middle to end, was actually starting to make some decent hires, especially if you looked at some of the other sports, track and field, baseball with Rick Haller, Fran McCaffery. I can't remember when Lisa Bluter got there, so I don't know if she was a hire for Gary Barta. I'd have to go back and look at all the hires. But suffice it to say, when Gary Barta was Iowa's AD, I would consistently comment on Facebook, the videos I made. I think at the time I was doing Facebook Live. I would say that this is the best year, or like one of the best years that we've had as Iowa fans when it comes to the entirety of Iowa sports. There was one year where Iowa football did great. Iowa basketball, both men's and women's, did great. They were top 25, competing. Wrestling won a national championship. Track and field uh, won the indoor tournament or whatever the case may be. Iowa baseball won the Big Ten tournament, made the NCAA tournament. I mean, you know, Iowa soccer made the NCAA tournament. I forget about Iowa soccer. Yes, there's still Iowa softball and Iowa volleyball that's still struggling to gain any traction. And last I saw, Iowa softball lost their coach this year. So that was kind of my take for Gary Barta. I like I said, I'd have to go back and see which hires were his. But Iowa athletics, if you look at how they were competing in the Big Ten, especially with the major sports, they were competing mid to a lot of times upper tier Big Ten. And so they forced him out. And he made ground on stadiums, Iowa football, athletic facilities. And that was kind of a mixed bag of results. It wasn't as clean as it should have been, and they forced him out. And so what I'm getting at is if you are going to put so much pressure and you're going to put immense pressure on an AD that has been there for so long, you have to have an option that you feel strongly about. What one would think. Now, does that end up being what it is? Not always. Sometimes there's political reasons for making certain decisions, which should never be the case, but in this day and age, it is. And so overall, the point that I made in multiple of the Fran McCaffery videos that I posted was that Beth Gates probably felt a need to get her people in there. And basketball was one of those sports that she had an opportunity to do that. And it's reasonable. Anytime there's a new AD, that's kind of the thought process, to out with the old, in with the new. That's why, especially when there's a guy that's forced out, that's why they put them there in the first place, so that they can elevate more of their programs to the level that they believe they should be at. Okay. So from that standpoint, I gave it like a 30% to 40% chance that she was going to move on. And I also said that if they were going to move on, they probably had already made their decision. When I made those videos, I said the decision's probably already been made at a certain point in the year, especially if Fran was unable to quickly improve the team. And I think as far as that goes, I was spot on. On both points. Now, speaking on whether this is the right decision before I start talking about Fran McCaffery, time will tell. Okay. When you decide to get a new coach, you are taking a risk, especially a coach that had been at Iowa for as long as Fran had been at Iowa. You are taking a risk, and he is going to still be paid in Iowa. If they want to hire some of the names that people have thrown out, Tucker DeVry's dad, or whatever his name is, Darian DeVry's, it's going to cost a lot of money. And that's why I was not super confident that this was going to happen, because of the money that it would take to continue to pay Fran McCaffery, who honestly was pretty well paid for a basketball coach, and what it would cost to buy out a coach from a different program that left his contract. So, and that still remains to be the case. But with that being said, I am a big proponent of doing what it takes to win, because at the end of the day, basketball and football are results driven. They are the sports that directly influence how much money the rest of the sports have. Yes, wrestling does well for Iowa, and there might be for some schools certain external sports that might bring in more money than one would expect, but they're still never on par with the major sports. So, and which brings me to my other point. While it is going to cost Iowa an arm and a leg for this route that they're taking, like I said, I am in favor of doing what it takes to get to the level that you believe your program can get to. I am a believer in that. And there's a lot of Iowa fans that are not. I also say you got to be careful what you wish for, because you can, if you don't make the right hire sequentially after, it can have effects that reverberate and extend far beyond multiple years and tons of money after. So you have to make sure that you get it right. Um, like I said, this brings me to my next point. As I start to lead into Fran McCaffery and kind of the next aspects of this situation. At the end of the day, when it came down to Fran McCaffery, and I have been one of the very few content creators. No, I think I've been the only Iowa Hawkeye content creator. You guys take this for granted. I hate to say it. Well, maybe not. That has consistently pointed out the apathetic feeling from the fan base towards Fran McCaffery. I can see it in my comment section. I can see it from the ticket sales. I can see it from the media. The vibe towards Fran McCaffery in Iowa basketball is that of, and this has been going on since last year, maybe even the year before, has been, eh, it's been like, oh, I hope they're good this year, but you know, I don't know. It's probably same old, same old. I don't, it doesn't, I don't really care. It's going to be a decent offense. They can't guard a thing, and they might win a few games and have a streak here or there, but in the biggest games they lose because they can't defend. They get shut down offensively. Game over. It's same old, same old. So I have pointed that out, and it's true. There is not a ton of excitement around Iowa basketball. And I have said also it's not all on Fran McCaffery, but a lot of it has to do with Fran McCaffery. Fran McCaffery was asked how much, he was asked, do you have the resources? I was thinking of pulling up the quote, but I think I remember it enough to summarize it. Do you have the resources or enough resources to compete for a Big Ten championship? His response was not a direct no, but he essentially said that according to the numbers, the top tier programs have a cap of, I think he said, $6 million per year to operate with. So that means, some of the top players for each team, for the top spenders are making high six, low seven figures. And Iowa is nowhere near that. The best thing that Iowa can do at this point is put their players in connection and network them with the right people to do certain things. Because remember, NIL money, you do have to perform services. It can't be directly just because you play basketball and you don't perform any service. That's the best Iowa can do, but even still, I'm sure they fall short of that. He said that the resources are not good enough. Iowa is nowhere near the 6 million. Tom Izzo, in his interview, said that Iowa is bottom of middle to bottom of the Big Ten in the amount of money that they have and resources that they have to work with. And so I wrote this down when I was going to make my video. I wrote chicken or the egg, because initially what I was going to say is that as to whether Iowa should get rid of Fran McCaffery or not, I was going to point out, as a lot of articles have pointed out, that whatever you do, it is not going to change Iowa's financial position when it comes to, and their position within the Big Ten when it comes to NIL and revenue sharing in paying players to get some of the top tier players. Now, obviously, Iowa still is able to do decently because they have a top 25, top 30 class for this class. This is one of the better classes that they have had. Joshua Lewis, Badari Dickety, and others. So it can be done. You know, Joshua Lewis is a top 75 player in the country that Iowa landed late in the process. You know, Iowa midseason got a transfer from Miami Hurricane, Isaiah Arignu, or Isaiah Grace Arignu. I always forget how to say his name. But was that because Fran was starting to feel the pressure and he was willing to sell his program and be more active in the recruitment process? So, but anyways, let me stay focused. The chicken or the egg? Yes. I was going to say does it change if you change coaches how much money Iowa has to operate with? But at the same time, how much one can make the case that how much money you have to operate with is directly tied with the excitement that you can raise for your program. And that is directly linked to the head coach. It's not 100%, but it is a lot. And if you don't have the skill or the energy and the charisma to do it, I think Fran McCaffery did have the charisma, but he just didn't care. He's also, you know, Philadelphia. He's got some attitude. He's sassy. You got to be willing to do it. And it's not for everybody. There's been many coaches that are simply not willing to do it. That is why Iowa was able to land Isaiah Johnson Arrigu, because Miami's coach, I forget his name. I think it's Jim Larinaga or something, who's been at Miami for a long time and brought Miami basketball to heights that they haven't seen in a while. He didn't want to do it. It's not for everybody. You have to find the right people who are willing to do it. This day and age that we are in college sports is totally different. So, chicken or the egg? You know, I would say that it's probably somewhere in the middle. Yes, Iowa naturally, you know, maybe doesn't have the most resources, but they also do have pretty strong fan attendance, especially when there's excitement in the program. Does Iowa need to do better in their arena composition and getting students there and stuff like that? Yes. But Iowa's not like the worst in the Big Ten when it comes to. Sorry, guys, I have a pimple on my nose. Need to stop picking it. They're not like the worst. So I'm sure they bring in money from basketball. I know because I've seen the numbers. They do bring in money. But it has Iowa for much of Fran McCaffery's time was top 25, but they have trailed off. And that's a problem. That is a problem. You know, you if you're Beth Gates, you have to ask yourself: is Fran checked out? Uh, is it untenable? Can this be reconciled? Can Fran get back to a place where he's has a good connection with the fan base and he has a program that is not reluctant to show up to games and get excited about Iowa men's basketball because that's also part of it. Not only did Fran have the attitude and the sass, but when it came to the results on the court, a lot of people were like, you know what? Fran's never gonna. They believed that Fran will never take them past the first weekend, and the results, honestly, it's hard to argue with. It's hard to argue with. So, like I said, the chicken or the egg, I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. You have to be a coach that is open to the current state of things. You have to be able to communicate and get the fans excited, and you have to be able to put a product out there that people can get behind and they feel that you're taking steps forward and you're taking strides to get better. And that was kind of, which brings me to my next point. Fran McCaffery was kind of a victim of his own success in some ways, not in every way, but in some ways. Um, it's only natural for the fan base once they see Iowa reach a certain height. With Luka Garza, they were top 10 in the country. At various points in Iowa's career, they're a top 10 team when Devin Marble was a senior. I mean, Fran McCaffery put some really strong teams out there. But at the end of the day, fans felt by the results that anytime they got excited about Iowa men's basketball, they were burned because Iowa was never like this. They were never a team that was getting better and better and better. In college basketball and college football, you see some of these blue blood programs, especially in basketball, that have some of these younger guys. They start here at the beginning of the year, but then they just continue this ascent. And by the end of the season, they're a really dang good team. Iowa would start here, but then they'd kind of just stay here and then maybe a little uptick. And then by the time the season, postseason rolled around, they're not really a top 10 team. And so the fans just felt, why would I get excited for this Iowa basketball team when they're just going to lose in the first weekend or the second game at most of the NCAA tournament? So, anyways, guys, I'm trying not to keep this video too long, but it's tough because Fran McCaffery's been here for 15 years. There's a lot to unpack here. Hopefully, you guys are enjoying the analysis. So he was a victim of his own success, and in some ways, okay. And the other aspect was that Fran McCaffery fundamentally, towards the end of his career at Iowa, showed an unwillingness to improve defensively. And so the average fan sees that and they're like, you know what? If you're going to be a stubborn a-hole about that, then I am too. I am not going to pay attention because it's going to be the same old, same old. And you know what? I do agree with that. I know there's some Iowa fans that believe that the issue lied with recruiting and athletes. I think personally, I think some of that kind of thought has to do with Iowa recruiting a decent amount of white guys. I don't think that that's true. Joe Wieskamp, for example, had a 40-inch vertical leap. Okay. And was drafted and saw his stock rise because of his athleticism. So, when you're in the Big Ten, there's a certain level of athleticism across the board. And really, are there some teams that are slightly better and, have like NBA level athletes? Yes. Um, and at times, Fran McCaffery would have those guys on the roster, but was unwilling to play them. Evan Bronze, um, and that's on him. I've said many times that is on him. He deserves all of the accountability that goes with that. Okay. Um, but, at the end of the day, Iowa had enough in my estimation, to get it done. A lot of it at the Big Ten level boils down to desire, grit, a culture that is infused into the program to to do more, to work harder, to be a fundamentally sound defense that is able to do it from game to game to game, and it's it's abnormal for you to have an off game rather for it being normal. Iowa would have bad game, bad game, bad game, bad game defensively, bad game, decent one or two, bad game, bad game. And that's because it was not built into the culture to care about the defensive side of things, to care about rebounding. And that was the problem. And I said from the time I made the videos to now, did I feel confident that Fran McCaffery was going to make the changes necessary? Not really. The only positive that I could say is that how he was recruiting, it looked like he was getting more of the athletes traditionally and the size needed to be successful. He was recruiting a lot of wing players. If you want to be better defensively, you have to get versatile wings. Um and he definitely did that. Um but it was too little too late, you know. And it still does not change that he did not get his guys that he did have ready to just be formidable defensively. Let me pull up Ken Palm here. That way we can really get down and dirty about this and talk about the stats. All right, so there's Fran. It was their last game. I was set to dismiss after he said that he did feel like he was going to come back. I mean, what else? I should have said this yesterday. I mean, what else do you say to a question like that? I mean, of course you're going to feel like you're going to be coming back, you know. So this year, we're almost done here. Iowa finished 64th, probably their lowest net ranking in several years. They were below Penn State, who they beat, below Nebraska. That's the thing is, programs like Nebraska and Fred Hoiberg were going this way while Iowa was going this way, and again, that's a problem, because teams were becoming privy to Iowa. Iowa was able to get away with it for a while. They would just totally out offense teams. But teams started to realize when they play Iowa to work for good shots, not to settle. If you work for good shots, you're going to get good shots. You're going to have a higher percentage that you're able to make. And then eventually you're going to be able to break through. And it's going to be really easy to score on Iowa. And that's what teams collectively did, especially in the Big Ten. I'm not even a Big Ten coach, and I know that this is how it works. Okay, I played Division One. This is how coaches think. And if I played a team like Iowa, that's exactly how I would beat them. I would say, let's work every possession for open looks, for good looks. Let's not force. Let's not bail them out by taking terrible shots. All right. So, anyways, Iowa was 173rd in defensive efficiency this year, and they were 18th in offensive efficiency. This year, offensively, they've gone from top 10 to 30th to it's kind of fluctuated, but they finished 18th. But they were just so bad defensively. I would rather Iowa be a team like Penn State where they're 61st and 73rd. Um, let's look at 2024. Iowa was finished 57th. They were 19 and 15. They were 20 spots better defensive efficiency at 157. And offense, they were 16th, so they were 2 spots better. Let's look at 2 more seasons. 2023. Meanwhile, Iowa State is consistently top. They were 19 and 14. One, what was that? One less loss than the year before. Yeah, they were 19 and 15. I don't know if Ken Palm only does regular season. I don't think that that's the case. I think they do all games. Um, yeah, this is saying through March 14th. So yeah, Iowa was an 8 seed in the NCAA tournament. They were fourth in offensive rating and 168 in defensive rating. Let's do one more year. These are the Keegan and Chris Murray years. 13th, 5 seed. They went 26 and 10. This is the Big Ten championship year, I believe. Fourth in offensive efficiency and 80th in defensive efficiency. So not terrible. But even 80th, fans and including myself wanted more. If only we knew that it would get worse. So the last couple of things that I want to say as I highlight Fran McCaffery is I do want to give him credit for being a development minded coach. Luca Garza, he helped produce Luca Garza, National Player of the Year. Now, or recruit him. Now, Luca Garza is Luca Garza. Mentally, Luca Garza, wherever he's at, is going to likely become some form of what we saw at Iowa. But still, Fran McCaffery gets some credit. And he's in the NBA. Um, Keegan, Chris Murray, first round draft picks. He gets credit for that. They're still in the NBA. Keegan's doing solid. Chris is coming along. Joe Wieskamp. Aaron White, Jared Utoff, Peter Jock. The list goes on and on. Jordan Bohannon was never my favorite player. But I thought he was very streaky and gave up more than what he gave to Iowa. But still, Fran McCaffery took a chance on him, and Jordan Bohannon absolutely in Iowa's offense outperformed what most people. I mean, his only other major offer, or not major offer, but decent offer, was DePaul. Okay, so he absolutely outperformed what most people thought. So I do want to give credit. Obviously, he won the Big Ten tournament. Had multiple top 10 teams. Let's just go ahead and look at it. Beat North Carolina at North Carolina that one time. That was a big win. 18 and 17, 25 and 13, 20 and 13, 22 and 12. Finished third, or tied for third. Round of 32, round of 32. Multiple years of 20 plus win seasons, 25 wins, 20 wins, 22 wins, 22 wins. Then we, took a step back. I think this was the Peter Jock year, 2016-17. Then it, was the following year. Iowa was 14 and 19. Then they shot right back up. 23 wins, 12 losses, 6 in the Big Ten, round of 32. 2019-20, they would have made the tournament, but of course there was COVID. They finished 20 and 11, tied for fifth in the Big Ten, 11 and 9. 22-9. I think this was Luca Garza's senior year. 14-6, third in the Big Ten. 26-10, and they won conference tournament. 19-14, 19-15, 17-15. So, even at the end, guys, it wasn't terrible. But towards the end, Iowa struggled more and more and more to compete with Power Four level teams. Because it's it's not easy, but it's easier to pick up at least 10 wins of or 5 to 10 wins of quad 3 and quad 4 level teams. Okay. um what differentiates your season is the ability to pick up quad 1 and quad 2 victories and compete, not get blown out by these upper top 30, 35 net ranked teams. And that's where Fran McCaffery was starting to take a step back. Is Iowa was not consistently competing with those teams. In fact, uh, at least half the time they would get blown the f out by certain teams in that bracket. All right, let's see if we can find an article uh, for possible replacements. I've already seen some names. There's the Darian DeVries guy. Um, Darian DeVries would be Beth Gates' ideal hire. I would be all for that. I mean, he's young. I think there's a good chance that he can keep a lot of the players that are on the roster, that's going to be the last thing I talk about. Um, and maybe he holds on to the. To me, the only coach that I think would be worth holding on to is Matt Gatins, because he played at Iowa. He probably has a good connection with Darian DeVries. He obviously knows the game of basketball. He knows the state of Iowa. He's young. Um, so let's see. Yeah, I think that's the top name. Let's just pull up this Hawk Central article, see if they have any names. Under McCaffery, Iowa developed notable talent. Luca Garza, two-time Big Ten Player of the Year, produced first-round NBA draft picks in consecutive years. Keegan and Chris Murray, and he deserves all the credit for finding them. They had no offers besides Iowa. Now, part of that was because they were late bloomers, prep school guys, but still. At its best, Iowa was relevant on a national scale, but there were also some fair criticisms about McCaffery's tenure at Iowa. He failed to lead a Hawkeye team to Sweet 16, despite having his share of star players, including Garza and the Murray twins. Temper flare ups occasionally brought unwelcome national attention. I never gave a crap about that. I think that's ridiculous. Defensive struggles were as woven into the fabric of the program's narrative as the Hawkeyes' high octane offense. As Carver Hawkeye Arena crowds dwindled, there was pointed discussion among the fan base about the state of the program and where it is headed. It only got louder in 24-25. Iowa brought back a roster that believed it could get to the NCAA tournament, highlighted by Peyton Siffer, Owen Freeman, and Josh Dix. But the season unraveled due to a variety of reasons, including injuries, continued defensive struggles, shortcomings on the road, and overall inconsistency. After a stretch in which Iowa lost 11 of 14 games, the team built some momentum at the tail end of the season. The Hawkeyes knocked off rival Nebraska in the regular season finale. Then Iowa upended Ohio State, marking his first win in the Big Ten since 2022. But it was too little, too late to be in contention for the NCAA tournament. Iowa fell to Illinois on Thursday, the second round of the conference tournament. This season goes down as one of the worst by overall winning percentage in the Fran McCaffery era. Probably, yeah, top five. Only twice before had Iowa failed to post a winning record under Fran McCaffery. This season was merely above that at 17 to 16, making it comparable to 18-17 campaign in 2011-2012. Iowa will miss the NCAA tournament in back-to-back years. That is the first time it happened since 2017-2018. Also, I think Fran McCaffery deserves credit for not having uh, knuckleheads, guys that got in trouble with the law, that got in trouble at school and stuff like that. He didn't. He recruited good kids, good guys, and I do want to highlight that. Um, Plenty of teams in the Big Ten have a more robust history and are loaded with more resources than Iowa. He pulled the program out of the doldrums of the Todd Licklider era and helped orchestrate iconic moments on the hardwood. I agree with that. He's one of the best coaches in America, Rutgers coach Steve Pickiel said. I know sometimes when you have a guy that's been here for a while, you don't appreciate truly every year. He has a really good team. He's a terrific coach. I don't think anybody believes Fran McCaffrey's not a good coach. I think it's become stale. And it's, you know, um, there's no picture of improvement of moving forward and it feels like we're at the end. With a program, you always want to feel like it's going somewhere, that you have goals and you're striving towards something. And Fran McCaffery, that was no longer the case. All right, so this article does not have that. All right, guys, last thoughts here. I think Iowa has a good roster. Depending on who they're able to land as head coach, they might be able to keep a good portion of their roster. However, there are a lot of guys. There are several guys that Iowa could, Josh Dix being one, Owen Freeman, that I can see a lot of suitors coming after them. They are ripe for the pickings. Iowa is going to need to make this hire ASAP. Um, that are disenfranchised by the decision and say, you know what, I'm going to take more money elsewhere and I'm going to transfer. So, but if that doesn't happen, I thought even if Fran McCaffery came back next year and the defense didn't improve a ton, but a little bit. I thought that they'd be an NCAA tournament team next year with the talent that they have. So I think whoever the next coach is, if they're able to keep a majority of the roster, they will be in great shape. That's the good news about the whole situation is Iowa, whoever the new coach is not taking a bottom of the barrel program as far as talent and where they've been the last 15 years, so but at the end of the day, it's going to be up to Beth Gates to sell the Iowa program to the next Iowa basketball coach. So, all right, guys, I'm exhausted. I've talked a lot. Um, I think I have hit every single aspect of this. I wish Fran McCaffery the best. His sons played at Iowa. That had mixed results. Um, I I never hated it, but I never thought that they weren't Big Ten level players like some Iowa fans. But the thing is, when they weren't like immediately successful, they were easy targets. Um, take it for what you will that the last son chose not to play at Iowa. Whether that was a reflection on Fran McCaffery and how he felt about the University of Iowa. Um, who knows? Um, I like I said, I wish him the best. There definitely were good times with him as head coach, but I think at the end of the day, it really was just time for Iowa to move on. Things had gotten stale, and it's not like football where you can replace a positional coach in hopes that it'll reverberate like a bad offense, like with Tim Lester or whatever. In basketball, you're either moving forward or you're not. And all of it is going to come down to the head coach, you know? So, um, once some names are dropped, I might do another video on that. Of course, I'll do a video as more information drops on this. But that is going to do it for me. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Fran McCaffery out after 15 seasons at the University of Iowa. There was good, mostly good, some bad. It'll be interesting to see if he, sorry, my hair's all messed up, takes another job elsewhere. I think he could kind of probably take a program like a Butler. I'm not saying Butler, but like a Butler, you know, a mid-level program that's more of like a basketball school, but they're not a Power Four level school. And I'd be all for that. So thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to hit the like, comment, share, subscribe. You guys know the drill. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a puss too low. In fact, your feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you, Hawk fans. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.